Welcome to the Unpackin' It podcast with Bryce Johnson. It's a show that unpacks sports, faith, and life with intriguing guests from the sports and entertainment world. Enjoy inspiring conversations and thought-provoking interviews. You'll hear stories from people that will inspire, challenge, and encourage you. Now, from the Unpackin' It studios in Charlotte, North Carolina, uniting sports fans everywhere, here is Bryce Johnson.
Welcome to the Unpackin' It podcast, where we unpack sports, faith, and life, oftentimes with intriguing guests from the sports and entertainment world. And so coming up, man, we've got some awesome guests that are set to join us here on the Unpackin' It podcast. But today's show is a nice Super Bowl preview. I know I'm fired up about this game, and my guest co-host today, producer for Unpackin' It, his name's Chris Allison. He's even more fired up than I am because he is a lifelong Kansas City Chiefs fan, and he's with me here in studio. Chris, has it set in? Your Chiefs are playing in the Super Bowl.
I don't know that it has, Bryce. Because here I am. I'm approaching 50, Bryce. I mean, I'm not necessarily a spring chicken. And
last time they were here, 50 years ago.
I just never, ever – I kind of came to grips with the fact that I may never see this, right? Because in my lifetime, I was born in 1972. They were past Super Bowl IV at that point by a couple of years. So here we are, 50 years from their last appearance. There's been some good seasons in between, but not just no Super Bowl wins, no Super Bowl appearances since Super Bowl IV. So here we are.
Gosh,
here we are.
I've been a Panthers fan since '95, so I'm thankful to at least have appeared in two Super Bowls and seen the team go.
Yeah.
But that's a good point, to never make it to the Super Bowl. But the other side of that, the Chiefs have been a good franchise. They're not the Lions, they're not the Browns, they're not the Bengals, the Raiders. They're right there in the mix, and they've had some great players over the years. You think of Tony Gonzalez and Willie Roaf, and I don't know, different. You know all the names, but I don't think of the Chiefs as a bad franchise or unsuccessful. But to not get this far, that's a big thing.
Well, it's crazy because the Chiefs have had 13-3 seasons. The Chiefs did, for a pretty good stretch, consistently at least compete, if not win, the AFC West. Yeah. They have had Hall of Fame players. The problem has been that every time the defense is great, the offense is bad. Or if the offense, gets some sort of stability, then the defensive side of the football falls off. And we've never seen anything come together. Even going into this year, that was kind of the thought. All right, you're going to have a great offense, but the defense, can they hold up their end of the bargain? And, they went out and replaced 8 starters from their defense a year ago, and it's panned out where the defense, at least over the last half of the season, has been good enough to help them get to this particular point. But it's a strange franchise because I do view the Chiefs as not only my team, but I think they're a respectable franchise. I mean, when my thought is that when everyone around the country looks at Kansas City Chiefs football, that you think that's a very good franchise. They've had a lot of success. But the fact is, from Super Bowl IV, from that season, that was 1970, I believe. From 1970 all the way to present day, they've won 6 playoff games.
Wow.
6. Now walk with me on this. All right, they've won 6. 2 of those 6 are this year, right? 1 was last year.
Oh, yeah.
So before last season, they had won 3 playoff games since 1970.
That's unbelievable.
Even though they've had home field advantage, even though they've had teams that you thought this could be it, they had won
even had
3
leads in playoff games.
Yes. and think back to the Titans back in
my goodness.
That was 2013. And, so it's been right there. And then they always have figured out a way to let it slip. And finally, we're seeing a little change, at least to the point that they're going to get an opportunity on Sunday.
I'm thrilled that they're there. I'm happy for Andy Reid. Clark Hunt has been a guest here on Unpackin' It. Talked to him a few years ago, and encourage you to check out that podcast. It's on unpackinit.com. But I was reminded that the Chiefs have experienced some major tragedy themselves. over the years, and they had to overcome a lot of adversity. I guess it was 5-6 years ago to see them come out of that, to see them make the decision to bring Andy Reid in as head coach. I mean, what a important decision that was for their franchise, to make the decision to trade up for Patrick Mahomes while having Alex Smith. I think that was such a huge decision for them, and of course the right decision. And then their willingness to sit Mahomes for a year, I thought was huge. And I'm a big fan of teams that wait on their young quarterbacks. I know you feel the pressure. Oftentimes they are ready, but I think a year helps you even if you are ready. I just think Mahomes was able to come in with that year of watching, learning, experiencing, and then I think he went in, with a pretty good team already, which was nice. So those are a few of my thoughts, just thinking about the Chiefs getting to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and Andy Reid has come in and really added some tremendous stability to the organization, and I think you're seeing right now an offensive wizard in Andy Reid. And he's got this prize, man. He's got this magician that he's able to work with. And, it's really nothing that he draws up that Patrick Mahomes you can't execute. And it's fun to watch.
Yeah, just to think that all that they've overcome, and that rocks a franchise. I mean, to watch one of your players go through that, and then you mentioned Derek Thomas. I mean, that was years ago, but they went through that tragedy. So this is a team and a franchise and a fan base that I know for me, I can get behind and root for. And honestly, I've got nothing against the 49ers, but I don't really have a strong reason to root for them in this game. And they've got 5? They've won 5. This is now their 7th Super Bowl that they've gone to. Remember, a couple years ago they lost to his brother. Jim lost to John in the famous power outage Super Bowl. So the 49ers are back. And I talked about this last week, but the big storyline for me with the 49ers is how they've built this team, and through the draft, through key signings, bringing in a guy like Richard Sherman, who had the Super Bowl experience from the Seahawks, a division rival, to make that move is always sometimes interesting. And I think he's brought a lot of credibility to that defense. And I know Darrelle Revis was giving him a hard time for he plays coverage instead of man-to-man, but I think Sherman at this stage of his career is still getting it done. And so you think about this matchup of an incredible offense with the Chiefs, a very strong defense from the 49ers, and I believe that defense wins championships. I buy into that. We saw it last year with the Patriots. It turned out to be a way more low-scoring game than we ever would have dreamed of, but they pulled it out. I have to go against that philosophy because I do believe that philosophy, but I am going with the Chiefs. I just think Mahomes is the X factor. I thought that with Aaron Rodgers in the same matchup, Packers, 49ers. They just could not get anything going. But I think Mahomes, his quick style, he doesn't need a lot of time back there. And I think, with the receivers being as fast as they are, with the number of weapons that the Chiefs have, I think they can overcome the defense enough. And I like their offense way better than the 49ers offense. Not that the 49ers is bad. They just run the ball so much. I just don't know if you can score enough with the Chiefs and keep up with them if it ever does get out of hand a little bit, where they score back-to-back touchdowns. And it's nice to run the ball, but I don't know. That's where I see the difference, where the Chiefs can score so quickly and Mahomes can throw so quickly against the defense.
Yeah. In the 49ers, they do get a lot of pressure with their front four. So, they're going to try not to have to blitz, right? Wouldn't it be great to drop 7 into coverage? But, their front four, they've got a tremendous pass rush led by Nick Bosa. And they're a healthier defense now than they were three weeks ago. So it is going to be a fascinating football game. We've seen Jimmy Garoppolo, the first 2 playoff games, be non-existent as far as what they've had to ask him to do throwing the football. But they've both times gotten a tremendous running game going. Mostert in the last contest. It was Tevin Coleman in the first playoff game for San Francisco. And one thing as a Chiefs fan that I look at, Bryce, that kind of excites me is the Chiefs had to go up against a Derrick Henry led rushing game against the Titans last week, and they were able to focus on him,
Bingo.
shut him down. That's a guy that blitzed them big time earlier this season. He rushed for over 200 against Kansas City's defense. So they went into this one knowing that if that gets going, remember they got down 10-0 in the AFC Championship game, and what a terrific opportunity for a running game dominated by a guy like Derrick Henry. All right, we're up 10-0. Let's just run the ball forever and we'll get out of here. And Kansas City didn't allow that to happen. So I'm glad they had that sort of offense to face. Going into now what I would say a similar offense, at least in the sense that San Francisco wants to do the same thing that Tennessee wanted to do. And, Derrick Henry had a few runs. I think he was held to under 70 yards or something
right around
like
there.
that. So that makes me feel a little more comfortable in what I think is going to be a tremendous game.
I think so, too. And if there was a blowout, I would think the Chiefs would blow them out. But I expect it to be a close game. And we've been spoiled in Super Bowls pretty recently. I'm trying to think. The Broncos-Seahawks one was brutal.
Right.
Seahawks won that game. I felt like within 2 minutes of that game. That one was memorable, too. So I ended up watching that Super Bowl over at my parents' house, and my dad got a new TV. So we're all excited. Oh, new TV. Well, guess what? He didn't know how to set it up right. So the image quality of that Super Bowl was so bad. It was like from the 80s. We're watching, like, we could barely see what was going on. All we could see was Seattle, 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 and we were big Peyton Manning fans, and it was hard to watch. So that was my memory of that one, which brings me up to this question. What is your Super Bowl viewing strategy this year and normally?
That's a great question.
This is your team.
Yeah, I don't mind hosting parties, although you kind of get distracted. You don't get to watch as much as you would like. I have attended parties, in Charlotte or in Kansas, depending on what Super Bowl we're talking about. This year, it's me and the fam. Yeah, it's me and the fam. In fact, our next door neighbors just moved in over the last 5 months from San Francisco. Oh, all right. So
I like it.
So
this is good.
This is interesting because the wife, is a diehard 49er fan, of course. The husband is actually from Denver. Oh. So he is a diehard Bronco fan.
Doesn't like the Chiefs.
No, he does not. But to the point that so this gentleman that I'm talking about, his name's Todd. My next door neighbor, 5 months ago, moves in from San Francisco. He was the Denver Bronco president of their fan club in San Francisco. That's how big of a fan he is. So I got one, his wife's going to be rooting for her team. He's going to be rooting against my team. And I know they want to come over, and I haven't invited yet.
No,
I'm not going to do it.
it.
I'm not going to do it.
Don't let them ruin your night. Don't do it. So here's my story. Yeah. So the last 3 years, I've had a very solid Super Bowl party at my house.
Right.
And it's worked out to where the guys are in my man cave and the ladies watch the game downstairs, and it's worked really well. We watched the comeback against Atlanta, which was memorable.
Oh, man.
The Philadelphia Eagles win, so some great Super Bowls. And then last year was kind of slow, but still fun. So I've had a blast. But years ago, when I would go to Super Bowl parties, too much was out of my control. Too many factors could ruin the night. Like I mentioned, the TV not being set up properly. Now I'm in control. I want to make sure that my TVs are correct and we're set up and we're good to go. I control what kind of food. I know we're going to have good food. I don't have to wonder about some, weird dip that the host has put out there, and I got to wonder, is this guacamole or some kind of weird apple dip? And I don't want anything to do with the apple dip. So the challenge, though, this year, I've got a 6-month-old.
All right.
My man cave is on the same floor with, her room.
Of course.
She goes down, 6:30 starts the process. So I'm in quite the predicament this year. And so it appears that my Super Bowl party days
are over.
I don't want to say they're over. I don't want to say they're over. They're on a hiatus.
Right.
And so my parents are gonna come over and watch the game, so I can watch the game with my dad and
awesome.
Of course, a diehard fan, and he's not bringing his TV. I got the TV. We're good to go on the TV. But then last night, so my wife's not a huge sports fan, and either is my mom, but they're gonna want to watch the game with us. Now, this is the other issue that I face with Super Bowl parties. I like to watch games with people that are into the game.
Right.
you can get away with it because there is the conversation around the commercials, and there are a lot of, for fringe fans, there's enough to be interested in. But because I'm neutral in this game, I think I'll be able to overcome it. So we'll let the ladies in the man cave for this one, and or the non diehard sports fans.
Right.
But
I've got 5 kids between 14 years old and 6 years old.
Oh.
So if I have neighbors and friends come over, guess what?
It's a big one.
That's more kids, right? 5's enough,
Oh,
right?
my
so,
goodness.
Hopefully it might be 6:30 bed now. I won't be able to pull that off.
No.
But I'm looking forward to it, man. It's I'm a Royals fan too, and we waited 30 years in between World Series, and finally got to 2 in 3 years. Won the second one. Should have won the first one. Bumgarner still, he broke my heart. So we got that one out of the way. Now we got to get this one out.
Do you care more about the Chiefs?
Someone asked me that earlier today, and I would say no so much. I mean, I feel like it's fairly equal, but I attended way more Royals games as a kid than I did Chiefs games. I lived about 3 hours from there, and it just seemed like when we would drive down and go to games, it was always during the summer, and we were always down watching baseball, watching George Brett. Back in that my early, let's say between the ages of 10 and 15, 16, the Royals were really good, and the Chiefs were really bad. So why would you spend 3 hours driving down to watch a 2-win Chiefs team in 1987 or whatever when the Royals are just coming off of a World Series and George Brett's still there, and you're doing all these things. So I just attended a lot more Royals games. So the World Series was I can't explain what I'll feel like on Sunday if this happens, but I know this: it's going to be hard to top what happened in 2016 when Kansas City finally got over the hump.
Yeah, no, that's it's a big opportunity for the Chiefs, and that'd be a tough choice for me too. Panthers or Hornets who I'd want, but it'd be a tight go. But I went to more Hornets games growing up. I had probably a deeper love for them when I was younger, but the Hornets haven't been good in the last since the Bobcats and since then.
You know what the strangest thing is too is when you're watching baseball and basketball finals. Right, it spreads out over 9 days or whatever, right? This is 3 hours.
That's it.
It's like
well, it's probably about 5, but you're right.
Fine.
You're right. The Super Bowl is always
I forget about
forever.
the 2 hour halftime, but
That's it.
So, this is this is all in one night as opposed to all right, we're up 3-1.
True.
So it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, which both are fun, but I love Super Bowl day. I love watching all the coverage all day long and hearing all the stories, and I love the week of media, all the shows down there, and it's fun. So I enjoy everything about the Super Bowl, so it should be a blast. But I'm pretty neutral. I'll go with the Chiefs. I'm picking them, rooting for them, and it should be a lot of fun, and would be happy for you to see your team win.
First time they've drafted a quarterback in the first round since Todd Blackledge.
There you go.
In 1984, whatever that was. So, it was the same year as the Marino and Elway, and yeah, they took the wrong guy, so that didn't work out. But nonetheless, it shows you the importance of good quarterback play, right? I mean, the one time they did make the AFC Championship game, Joe Montana was at the end of his career and playing still pretty good quarterback for them. But the Chiefs have really been hard pressed to find a guy consistently under center that can make plays. And right now, Bryce, it looks like they might have not only the guy for this year, but the guy for years and years to come. I think Patrick Mahomes could go down as one of the best to ever do it.
Wow.
So,
to me, it just seems so premature, but I think we just need to enjoy the moment of how great he's playing.
Yeah.
So
8 touchdowns, no picks in this year's postseason. I think he had 5 interceptions all of 2019. And, just to be really what Bryce into his second year of starting a quarterback in the NFL. As you said, he set out that first year with the exception of one game that he started. So I'm just going to say I don't want to put too much pressure on the dude, but I'll sit back and enjoy it. But what you've seen so far looks pretty good.
The great point is that Aaron Rodgers went to a Super Bowl early in his career and hasn't been back.
Yes.
And so you would think, the Chiefs will be back, Mahomes will be back. We just don't know.
Never know.
We don't know that.
Yeah,
so we'll enjoy the run that they're on right now. So
yes, sir.
So let me close with this thought. Each podcast, we love to wrap it up with Unpack This, and each day I write a devotional. We call it Unpack This. It's a quick thought about sports, faith, and life. And so this time of year, love writing about the Super Bowl and both teams. And actually, we've got a special Bible app reading plan that just launched on Monday or Sunday, and it's 6 days of devotionals about the Chiefs and the 49ers. So go download that in the Bible app on your phone. And so if you love the daily email, this is similar to that, but it's on the Bible app. So I want to encourage you to check that out. But then when it comes to Unpack This, on Friday, I wrote about the 49ers-Ravens Super Bowl that I alluded to earlier, when the power went out in that game. And it was just a memorable game because, well, for me, a couple weeks before that, I had proposed to my wife. So I remember that time just being a crazy time of my life. But the Ravens ended up winning that Super Bowl, and they were up 28-6 when all the lights went out in the New Orleans Superdome. And what was crazy is the 49ers ended up playing really well once the power came back on. So all the momentum shifted. And so what I remember from that moment and thinking about, okay, the power went out, how can that encourage us today? I think so often in life, we try to operate either in our own power, which ultimately means no power. Like we don't have the kind of power that is available to us when we rely on God to give us his power. And so when we surrender our lives to Jesus, we pursue his will and allow him to work in us and through us, his power is available to us so that he enables us to do things that we cannot do in our own strength. We cannot do in our own power. And so when we walk around powerless, we're walking around in the dark. So just like that Super Bowl where there was no power, there was no lights, we're walking around in the dark when we've got so much available to us. And so in Ephesians it says, now all glory to God who is able through his mighty power at work within us to accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think. So beyond what we can even imagine, he's able to do through us. And so we saw the difference, in that Super Bowl between when they had power and when there was no power. And there's a difference in our lives when we rely on God's power, his full power working in us, versus trying to do it on our own with our limited power, our limited strength, because true power, true strength comes from him working in us and through us. So that's my encouragement to us today, to live in that power. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Would love to hear from you. What are you doing for your Super Bowl party? When you had a young baby, how'd you handle it? What'd you do? Would love to know the advice. Shoot me an email, bryce@unpackingit.com. Thanks to Chris Allison, our producer here on Unpacking It. We got some more great Unpacking It podcasts coming your way soon with some interesting interviews, some great guests coming up. And so be looking for that. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And please spread the word. Invite your friends to subscribe to the podcast as well. And you can also subscribe to the devotional at unpackingit.com. I'm Bryce Johnson. I'm a sports fan who follows Jesus. And I hope that you will join me on this journey as we follow Jesus together. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sins. He was resurrected, and through faith, I am saved by his grace. And so I hope that is true for you as well. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks so much for listening to the Unpacking It podcast.
For more information about the show, our events, and other resources, visit unpackingit.com. That's unpackingit.com. We hope you are encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. To support our show and Unpacking It Ministries with a financial gift, visit unpackingit.com/donate. We look forward to unpacking sports, faith, and life with you again next week.